What if your entire existence could be erased by silence? That was the question Caroline had learned to answer with her life. No one ever hears a servant's daughter breathe in a mansion made of marble and secrets. No one notices the girl who moves barefoot before dawn, sweeping invisible dust from the floors where kings of industry tread. Caroline knew how to fold herself into corners, how to vanish beneath chandeliers, how to speak only when spoken to, and even then, not too loudly. Silence, in the Lee estate, was not just survival. It was the rule. Her mother, Mama Amora, had said it best the first day they arrived from Lagos. In this house, we are shadows. You must learn how to disappear before they even know you are there. And Caroline had obeyed. For 17 years, she lived in the corners of someone else's life. Her world was built from the scent of bleach and boiled rice, from whispered lullabies in Yoruba and the echoing Korean she had forced herself to learn by listening behind doors. She had never owned a bed of her own, not truly. The cot she shared with her mother was a borrowed space, tucked in the servant quarters behind the main house, so close to the generator room that her dreams often vibrated in sync with the machines. The mansion itself was cold and vast, a white fortress standing in the hills of Seoul, its windows so clean they reflected the world without ever letting it in. The Lee family called it home, but Caroline knew it for what it was, a glass cage gilded with silence. There was the father, Chairman Lee, a man whose voice was softer than his punishments. There was Madam J, his porcelain wife with a laugh that never touched her eyes. And then there was Lee Song, the boy who was born with everything Caroline had only seen in dreams. And yet, he never looked happy. Not once. But that wasn't her business. Or so she thought. It was a Wednesday morning when everything changed. Caroline was polishing the banister on the east wing staircase, one of the only tasks that gave her a clear view of the massive chandelier in the entrance hall, when Madam J descended like smoke in silk. She was on the phone, her voice sharp and low, speaking in clipped Korean. Caroline turned her face downward, eyes fixed on the wood grain. Never look a master in the eye. But then, a word. A name. Her name. Caroline, yes, the girl. I suppose she's bright enough. Caroline's fingers froze against the railing. She speaks Korean fluently, doesn't she? The board would like that. A long pause. Then a sigh. Fine. Let her have the scholarship. Scholarship. Caroline blinked, unsure if her ears had betrayed her. Later that night, Mama Amora sat in their cramped quarters, cross-legged on the floor with her back against the washing machine, staring at the acceptance letter with trembling hands. They want to send you to Daehan Academy, she whispered. Do you know what this means? Caroline couldn't speak. She could barely breathe. Daehan Academy was not a school. It was a kingdom. It was where the children of politicians, celebrities, conglomerate heirs, and CEOs learned how to rule the world. People like Caroline were not allowed past the gates, unless they were cleaning them. How? She finally asked. Mema Amora's eyes narrowed. They said you topped some placement test. I didn't even know you took one. I didn't, Caroline murmured. But in her mind, a memory sparked. Last year, she had been asked to help grade a mock entrance paper for a bored tutor who thought it'd be amusing. She had solved every question for fun, like a puzzle. She had no idea it had been real. And now, the gates of Daehan Academy were opening. But at what cost? She sat on her cot that night, knees drawn to her chest, staring at the moon through the slatted window. Something didn't feel right. It felt like a trap woven in golden thread. But Mema Amora was smiling, and it had been so long since she'd smiled. I told you, God is watching, her mother said softly, gently brushing Caroline's hair. You are not made for this dust. You're meant to rise. But Caroline had lived too long among silence to believe in clean miracles. She knew that in houses like the Lees, nothing was ever given freely. There was always a reason. And sometimes, the most dangerous thing you could do was be seen. Still, she accepted. Because if there was a chance, just a chance, to step out of the shadows and into her own light, she had to take it. Even if it cost her everything. His world smelled of tailored leather seats, expensive cologne, and cold ambition. At 17, he had already graced 3 magazine covers, not for modeling, though he could have, but as the crown prince of the Lee family's multi-billion conglomerate. The boy who would inherit it all. The next architect of Korea's economy. He hated it. Lee Song sat alone in the back of the black Genesis as it cut through Seoul's dawn. Outside the tinted windows, the city yawned into morning, neon lights fading, shopkeepers lifting shutters, the air still grey with sleep. His driver, Mr. Cho, hadn't spoken a word in 40 minutes, which suited Lee Song just fine. He scrolled through his phone absently, ignoring the flood of congratulatory texts about Daehan Academy's new fiscal partnership with Lee Group. None of it mattered. Not to him. The school was a breeding ground for snakes dressed in uniform, and his place there was a cage lined with gold. He was top of his class only because failure wasn't permitted. Not in his bloodline. He closed the phone and stared out. Sometimes he wondered what it might feel like to just disappear. To walk into a crowd and never be recognized. To be someone, ordinary. His thoughts shifted, as they often did, back to the girl with the quiet eyes. The servant's daughter. Caroline. She moved like someone who didn't want to be remembered. And yet, something about her stuck in his mind like a thread that refused to unravel. The first time he saw her, really saw her, she had been balancing a tray of dishes in the kitchen, sleeves rolled, hair pulled back, humming some strange tune under her breath in a language he didn't know. There was nothing extraordinary about the moment. And maybe that was what made it unforgettable. She didn't flinch when he entered the room. She simply nodded and kept humming. Everyone else in the house either bowed, whispered, or disappeared. But not her. And now, as fate would have it, she would be joining his school. Lee Song didn't know whether to be intrigued or afraid for her. Daehan Academy was a battlefield dressed in pressed blazers and polished brogues. It did not forgive difference. And it certainly did not welcome outsiders, especially those without a title, a trust fund, or a famous surname. When he arrived at the school gates that morning, the air buzzed with usual entitlement. Chauffeurs lined the pavement, students stepped out of luxury cars like mini royalty, and the gates to the academy loomed ahead like the entrance to an ancient temple. As Lee Song stepped from the car, murmurs followed. Girls nudged each other and smiled with too many teeth. Boys offered forced greetings. Teachers nodded with rehearsed warmth. He walked through it all like a ghost among puppets. And then, he saw her. Caroline. She stood at the edge of the courtyard in her new Daehan uniform. It fit her too well, like it was borrowed from someone richer, and the blazer sleeves were just a little too long. Her shoes were not polished. Her backpack was not designer. She looked out of place, like a paper flower in a marble garden. But her eyes held the kind of fire he hadn't seen in years. She met his gaze, just briefly, and then looked away. He felt something pull in his chest. But before he could approach, a voice slithered beside him. Well, look who the dogs dragged in. Seo Minute June. His once friend. Now his sharpest rival. The son of Korea's most feared prosecutor, Minute June was as dangerous as he was charming, his smile always hiding something venomous. Lee Song didn't respond. Minute June tilted his head. You see her too, don't you? See who? Minute June chuckled. Don't lie. It's beneath your breeding. There was a pause between them. Then, Minute June added in a whisper, she doesn't belong here, Song. But you knew that already, didn't you? Lee Song watched Caroline disappear into the school building, her figure swallowed by doors too heavy for most dreams to push open. He didn't answer. But his fists curled slightly at his sides. Some things weren't Minute June's business. And some battles had to be fought in silence. Caroline knew the sound of laughter when it wasn't meant to be shared. It was sharper, hungrier, like the clink of broken glass. And it followed her down the corridors of Daehan Academy like a second shadow. She walked with her head high, eyes forward, just like Memara Mora had taught her. But even steel bends under enough pressure. Every step she took across the school's polished marble floors felt like an act of defiance, as though the very walls were daring her to trip, to falter, to remember that she was not one of them. Is that her? The maid's daughter? I heard she used to clean toilets. No way. In this school? She's probably here to spy. Take photos. Steal. The whispers never stopped. They changed forms, changed mouths, changed languages, but the message was always the same: you don't belong. Caroline had never felt her skin so loudly. She could hear her difference in the echo of her own footsteps. Her first class was advanced political studies. The teacher, a pinched man with eyes like frostbite, asked everyone to pair up for a joint essay presentation. Caroline hadn't even opened her mouth before the air shifted and the desks rearranged themselves through silent glances and subtle scoots. No one sat with her. She ended up alone, scribbling thoughts onto a page while the rest of the class giggled in cliques. But she didn't complain. She was used to earning her place alone. Still, by the third period, even her silence had become a target. As she opened her locker, a folded slip of paper fell out. It wasn't signed, but the words inside cut clean. Back to the dust where you came from, Cinderella. This is a kingdom, not a fairy tale. Caroline stared at the handwriting for a long second. Then she tore the note into tiny pieces, dropped them into a bin, and walked away. But the damage was done. They knew her now. In the cafeteria, the cruelty sharpened. She stood in the food line, tray in hand, when a girl with bleached hair and glossy nails turned sharply and accidentally spilled an entire drink down Caroline's uniform. The hall fell into a suffocating silence. The girl, one of Minute June's groupies, offered a theatrical gasp. Oops. My hand slipped. Caroline stood there, soaked and shivering, clutching the tray like a shield. She didn't cry. She didn't flinch. She simply looked at the girl and said, calmly, next time, let it slip on your own clothes. For a moment, just a flicker, there was respect in the girl's eyes. But it vanished quickly, replaced by a sneer. Across the hall, Minute June was watching. He was perched on the edge of a table like a prince at court, surrounded by admirers. But his eyes were fixed solely on Caroline. She's different, he muttered to no one in particular. One of his boys chuckled. Yeah, like a stain on a white shirt. Minute June didn't laugh. He was already thinking, calculating. He liked puzzles. Especially the human kind. Caroline intrigued him. Meanwhile, across the cafeteria, someone else had seen everything. Lee Song. He had stood near the back, a silent observer. He hadn't stepped in. Not yet. Not because he didn't want to, but because he needed to know what kind of flame burned inside her before he decided to touch it. Now, he knew. She wasn't fragile. She was contained. Like fire in a lantern. But even lanterns break. That evening, as the school emptied out and the sky turned pewter with drizzle, Caroline sat on the stone steps behind the library. It was the only place no one else seemed to go. Her soaked blazer was draped beside her. The cold bit at her skin. She didn't cry. She never cried in front of strangers. Only in the dark, when the world couldn't see her. She didn't hear him approach. Do you always sit here when the wolves circle? Lee Song's voice was soft, but it carried. Caroline turned, startled. He stood a few feet away, schoolbag slung over one shoulder, an umbrella in his hand. She looked back at the horizon. It's quiet here. Too quiet, he said, stepping forward. Like the moment before a storm. She shrugged. Storms are honest. He stared at her for a moment. Then, you didn't deserve that. What they did. Caroline didn't respond. You handled it better than I would've, he added. You don't know what I've handled, she said quietly. There was a silence between them. It wasn't awkward. It was full. Then he surprised her. I hated this place too, once, he admitted. You don't strike me as someone who gets hated easily. You'd be surprised, he said. Sometimes the ones who smile the most are the ones no one really sees. Caroline looked at him. And for the first time, she saw something in his eyes that wasn't confidence. It was loneliness. I see you, she said, before she could stop herself. Lee Song smiled, soft, real. And for a brief moment, the walls around them crumbled. But in Daehan Academy, no connection went unnoticed. High above, in one of the classroom windows, Minute June watched the exchange with narrowed eyes. He turned to his friend. Looks like the prince found himself a new pet project. Then he smiled. But even princes forget. Fire burns. What does it mean to bloom where you're not planted? The question came from Ms. Hai-jin, their literature teacher, as she stood poised before the class in heels too sharp and eyes too knowing. Her voice sliced through the morning fog like a bell, crisp and deliberate. Caroline didn't raise her hand. She didn't need to. The question already lived inside her. To bloom where you're not planted, meant to grow in soil that rejects you. to sprout in places where even sunlight is rationed. It meant becoming a flower even when everyone expected you to stay a seed, buried, forgotten. Caroline kept her gaze on her desk, but the answer thrummed through her bones. Lee Song, 2 rows behind, looked up from his notes and found her in the crowd. She hadn't spoken, but somehow, he knew. She was the answer. By now, whispers had grown louder. Students no longer tried to hide their gossip. They pointed, they snickered, they speculated. Rumors tangled around her like vines. Some said she was a charity case. Others swore she was a spy planted by the board. A few insisted she'd cast a spell on Lee Song. She ignored them all. But Daehan had a way of breaking you slowly, through 1,000 paper cuts instead of a single wound. Caroline opened her locker that afternoon to find her textbooks vandalized. Someone had scrawled housemaid's child across the pages in thick red ink. Another had added, no class, no chance. She stood still, breathing in the stench of ink and cruelty. Her fingers trembled, but she didn't let them see it. Do you want me to handle it? Came a voice behind her. She turned. Lee Song. His expression unreadable, his tone carefully neutral, but his eyes were flint. No, she said. It's just ink. It's hate, he replied. And hate spreads. There was something in the way he said it, a weight to his words that made her pause. You've seen it too, she asked. I live in a palace built on it. And there it was, the moment when 2 worlds recognized their shared cracks. Later that evening, something changed. Ms. Hyjin assigned a group project. A debate on legacy vs merit. Students were to form pairs. Once again, Caroline stood alone as the rest of the class clustered into familiar alliances. No one wanted to partner with the girl whose hands had once carried trays, not books. Until a chair scraped back. Lee Song. I'll partner with her, he said, calm and final. Silence fell like a curtain. Even Ms. Hyjin blinked. Someone at the back muttered, of course he would. But Caroline simply nodded, unsure whether to thank him or warn him. Are you trying to rescue me? She asked under her breath as they sat together. No, he said. I think you're the only one worth debating with. There was no flirtation in his tone. Just clarity. She studied him a moment, uncertain. No one had ever spoken to her like that before, not as a cause or a case, but as an equal. They spent the next 3 days working together, their meetings tucked into library corners, late afternoons beneath cherry blossom trees where petals drifted like falling secrets. And slowly, conversation became laughter. Laughter became comfort. He learned she loved numbers more than people. That her dream was to study economics abroad and return to build schools in underdeveloped areas of Nigeria. That she hated pity but adored underdogs. That her father had vanished when she was 6. She learned he hated symphonies because they reminded him of his father's dinner parties. That he once wished he'd been born poor, just to know if anyone would love him without conditions. That he painted at night when the silence became too loud. 2 worlds stitched together by threads they never knew they shared. But outside their fragile bubble, the fire brewed. Minute June watched with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. To him, the game had changed. This wasn't just about Lee Song anymore. It was about control. And Caroline had become the weakness. So he began to plant seeds. A rumor here. A photograph there. One afternoon, a message appeared on the school forum under an anonymous ID. Sleeping her way to the top. The prince and the pauper have more than just schoolwork in common. It spread like wildfire. Caroline saw it on a classmate's screen during lunch. The girl turned the phone quickly, embarrassed. The burn was immediate. Not the lie, but the precision of it. The way it twisted something pure into something dirty. She left the hall without finishing her meal. Later that night, she sat beside Mema Amora on the old bench behind the servant quarters. The moon was thin, the night cool. They've started again, haven't they? Her mother asked quietly. Caroline didn't answer. Her silence was enough. Mema Amora reached out and held her hand. Let them talk. The moon does not shrink because dogs howl. Caroline exhaled slowly, pain and pride knotted in her chest. And as she looked up at the moon, she whispered to herself, I will not break. But deep inside, she could feel it, something shifting. A storm was coming. And this time, it wouldn't be one she could walk away from. How much weight could a heart carry before it crumbled? Caroline found herself asking this question in the quiet moments between classes, in the lonely walks back to the servant quarters, in the aching stillness of midnight. The slander against her had seeped deeper than she expected. Like smoke slipping under doors, it filled every corner of her life, suffocating her slowly. But she did not cry. Tears were a luxury for people who knew they would be comforted. At Dahan Academy, everything felt heavier now. Every glance, every silence, every fake smile stretched too tightly across too many faces. Even the teachers, once politely indifferent, now looked at her with barely concealed suspicion, as if they, too, believed the filth whispered behind cupped hands. Only Ms. Hai-jin treated her the same, but Caroline sensed even that thread was fraying. She wasn't alone in the storm. Lee Song remained by her side, stubbornly, recklessly, but his loyalty came at a cost. First came the side eyes from his so-called friends, then the cold shoulders from teachers who once sang his praises. The Lee family's name had always paved his way with gold and silence. Now, whispers of shame and rebellious air clung to him like wet clothes. One afternoon, as they sat under the old ginkgo tree near the abandoned music room, Caroline said quietly, "You don't have to stand with me." Lee Song frowned. "I'm not standing with you." She looked up, confused. "I'm standing for you," he corrected. "And for myself." He plucked a yellowing leaf from the ground and twirled it between his fingers. "Do you know what my grandfather once said?" he asked. She shook her head. "If you owe the world your life, make sure you live it on your own terms. Or you'll die twice. The first time when they crush your soul, the second when they bury your body." Caroline stared at him, something sharp and warm blooming painfully in her chest. Still, no amount of loyalty could shield her from what came next. It started on a Thursday. A scholarship review notice was slipped into her locker, anonymous, unsigned, but official enough to terrify her. Due to multiple complaints regarding character and conduct, a review of your scholarship has been scheduled. Attendance is mandatory. Failure to comply may result in immediate expulsion. Complaints. Character. Conduct. It was a knife made of words, but the cuts were real. Caroline clutched the letter to her chest, feeling the walls of Dahan Academy tilt and sway around her. That night, Mema Amora found her sitting outside in the cold, the letter crumpled in her fist. "They're trying to chase me out," Caroline said hollowly. Mema Amora knelt before her, smoothing her daughter's hair back from her damp forehead. "Then you must plant your feet and dare them to move you." "I don't know if I'm strong enough." "You are," her mother said firmly. "Because you are my daughter. Because you are the dream I carried across oceans and deserts and sleepless nights. Because you are made of ash, yes, but also of stars." Mema Amora pressed a kiss to her forehead. "Let them burn everything down," she whispered. "Ash is where new things grow." The day of the scholarship hearing, the skies opened up and poured. It wasn't rain, it was a funeral. Caroline walked into the boardroom soaked to the bone, her borrowed black blazer clinging to her skin. Across the long mahogany table sat the Academy's board members, faces carved from stone. Principal Han, seated at the center, cleared his throat. "Miss Caroline Amora, you are aware of why you've been called here?" She nodded, her throat tight. "Several accusations have been brought against you. Improper conduct, inappropriate relationships with fellow students, damage to the Academy's reputation. Do you have anything to say in your defense?" Caroline opened her mouth, but before she could speak, a voice cut across the room. "She has nothing to defend." Lee Song. He stepped through the doorway, rain dripping from his hair, defiance blazing in his eyes. "This hearing is a farce. The accusations are lies. Everyone knows it." Murmurs rippled through the board. "Sit down, Lee Song." Principal Han barked. But Lee Song didn't move. Instead, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a sheaf of printed screenshots, proof of the cyberbullying, the anonymous posts, the orchestrated harassment. He threw them onto the table. If anyone's damaged Dahan Academy's reputation, it's the cowards hiding behind fake accounts to tear down a girl who's done nothing but survive. For a long, suspended moment, no one breathed. Caroline stared at him, stunned. Principal Han's face darkened. "This is not your concern," he snapped. Lee Song smiled coldly. "It's everyone's concern when justice is being strangled." The board exchanged glances, calculating, uneasy. At length, Principal Han shuffled the papers, clearing his throat. "We will deliberate and inform Miss Amora of our decision in due course." The hearing was adjourned. As they stepped out into the storm, Caroline turned to Li Song. "Why would you do that?" she asked, voice shaking. He shrugged, rain cascading down his face. "Because some debts aren't paid with money. They're paid with loyalty." Caroline looked at him, really looked, and realized. Some people were not given to you by life. Some people were sent to you by fate itself. And yet, even in that moment of fragile hope, a darker current swirled beneath the surface. Because not all storms are weathered. Some storms consume. And in the heart of Daehan Academy, the real war was only just beginning.